Coming up on today's show, I'll be recapping all the latest news from this past weekend and week that I missed while I was gone. I'll also be ranking my top NASCAR prospects. As well, I'll be discussing why Road America and the Milwaukee Mile should be on NASCAR schedules in the coming years. Welcome to the 32nd edition of Talking NASCAR. I am Andrew Volkman. Thank you all for tuning in today. I greatly appreciate it and hope you can stick around for the whole show because we got a lot of stuff to cover, especially from this past weekend and week that I missed. Again, I missed a little bit of time on the show due to a bunch of stuff personally, and I also had a bunch of stuff going down on Sunday in my area that I had to deal with, but all that is resolved now. A bunch of the stuff has gotten resolved, and I'm back with another episode. I was gonna do this yesterday on Tuesday, but I ran out of time yesterday, so I'm here on Wednesday releasing this episode. I got a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of news, a lot of things I want to discuss and share my thoughts about. So let's just go ahead and jump straight into it. My producer just informed me that that last section I just recorded was a little bit down on sound there. So I hope you guys don't notice that. And if you do, I apologize for that. My producer and I kind of screwed up. Mostly I screwed up because my mic volume was not all the way up. But I want to start by talking about Stuart Friesen. Back after Indianapolis about 2 weeks ago, he had an injury after racing on Saturday. And it was a massive dirt crash and a late model crash, fiery incident, flipping through the air. Thankfully, Stewart was released from a hospital after a multi-hour surgery. His wife, Jessica, released an announcement on X about his condition and saying he's back home and saying then that they were going to see a physical therapist very soon. All things considering how much time has passed, he probably is seeing a physical therapist at this point. So, really good to see that Stuart Friesen is out of the hospital and he is doing well. In that update, they did say that he was quite in a lot of pain. So I imagine that he probably still is, and it will take a little bit of time for him to recover. We already know that Caden Honeycutt will be in that truck for the rest of the season. So Stuart Friesen is not expected to return to that 52 truck for the rest of the season. And Stuart did qualify for the playoffs at Michigan with that win. But after that injury, he was not allowed, or after that injury, he's going to be out of the truck for the remainder of the season. So one thing I do want to touch on is that Stuart Friesen can actually apply for a playoff waiver, and maybe he could possibly get that. On NASCAR's Hauler Talk podcast, with several of its insiders and specialists and some other executives in NASCAR, Mike Ford announced or said on that podcast, I should say, he said that Stuart Friesen can apply for a playoff waiver for that truck. And if he does get it, they will be in the playoffs. Stuart Friesen himself will be in the playoffs. However, he will not be able to make progress and will be eliminated after the first round, since he will not himself be driving in the driver point standings. But he can also apply possibly for, he can apply for it, I should say, and get in. He'll just take up one spot in the playoffs and not really move forward at all. His truck, the number 52 truck, will remain in owners points playoffs with Caden Honeycutt behind the wheel, while Caden Honeycutt himself will be going for the drivers playoffs. And I think right now he is right now qualified for the drivers playoffs, and we haven't gotten official word on if Stewart is going to go for that playoff waiver. I imagine not. It's so long now since that injury, and it doesn't seem like Stewart plans on it. I would be very surprised if he does, because realistically, Stewart would. I don't think Stewart would be the type of guy that would say, "I want the guaranteed money from um, being in the playoffs and just having that name." I don't think Stewart would want to do that, but I could be wrong about that. So I don't think he's going to do that. Rest assured, I don't think he's going to do that. Things can change, however. So I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh, he's not going to do that," without actually me knowing what it is. So I don't expect him to do it, and I hope Stuart Friesen doesn't do that. So I think that'll be a real shame to some of his other competitors. So, and I think Stewart has been in this game long enough to know that he shouldn't do that, and it would be really kind of what kind of look would that put on him if he did do that? And what would that say about his team that he owns himself? And I don't know. Things can happen. I would expect Stuart Friesen to actually go for that playoff waiver. So this does remind me of Kurt Busch back in 2022. He qualified for the playoffs in the Cup Series, the drivers' playoffs, I should say, by winning at Kansas earlier in the year. And then at Pocono later in the season, he was injured in a qualifying crash where he spun off turn 3 at Pocono. Very high speed track, very loose, very on edge throughout that whole qualifying run. And he ended up hitting the outside wall and suffering a concussion, some neck injuries, and since then he had to retire due to him not being eligible to race and not medically cleared to do so. Very sad story, by the way. There's some videos online that you should definitely go and see because the story of Kurt Busch and his career trajectory, especially in recent years, is very sad. I think, yeah, he had a rough career to say so. Uh, and 2022 was one of the worst moments in NASCAR, and showed a lot of flaws in the next gen car and in NASCAR's practices. So thinking of that, actually, I wouldn't be surprised if 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports use that. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't use that or they do use that as a way to vouch for NASCAR being a monopoly because NASCAR's actions did force a driver into retirement, I should say, but that's off topic anyway. So I'll focus on that a little bit later. But either way, reminds me of that incident, and Kurt Busch ended up, not deciding to take the playoff waiver and allowed another one of his 35 other competitors to qualify the playoffs. However, Bubba Wallace was transferred to that number 45 car, in an attempt to possibly contend for the Owners' Championship. He ended up not making it because he was suspended after, intentionally wrecking Kyle Larson at Las Vegas later that year. So just thought I wanted to point that out because it reminded me of this whole Stuart Friesen playoff situation. That's what it reminded me of. Moving on, another guy that got a playoff waiver is Austin Hill, driver of the number 21 car for Richard Childress Racing in the Xfinity Series. I don't more so want to fall on this, but I want to talk about something he did at Watkins Glen. Uh, but Austin Hill, now having that playoff waiver, he is eligible for the playoffs, but he had to forfeit all of his playoff points earned before Indianapolis and the suspension, and he can no longer earn playoff points for the rest of the regular season heading into the playoffs. So he will start the playoffs, the Xfinity Series playoffs, with 0 points, 0 playoff points, and it will be very hard for him to win that championship. So that's something I wanted to cover. That happened early last week, I would say, maybe just after I posted my last episode before Monday's recap of Watkins Glen. Now, what I failed to talk about in Monday's episode is the stuff Hill did on track at Watkins Glen. First, I want to talk about the discussion he had on pit road with some of the reporters on TV. He continued to vouch that it was an accident and he didn't mean to do that, and it was a racing incident. And he even claimed that he had contact with Sheldon Creed in the 00 car for Haas factory team, who was running right behind them. And Hill claimed that Creed made contact with his left rear, and that sent Hill into Eric Almirola in the 19. And I'm just thinking that no, there's no way that happened. Like I looked at the video again. It was clear that he hit Almirola first, and then he continued down into Creed, and that's what sent him around. And Almirola ended up hitting the wall. And he pointed to telemetry and stuff. Now, and telemetry, by the way, is like some like lines and on computer tracking, and it's able to see the racing path that you have. And I haven't seen it, and I really don't think I can see it, but all that is public, by the way. And it's some people said that they looked at it and it doesn't look that way. And just looking from the video, he obviously hooked it in the left to the left, like possibly to just a door slam. Eric Almirola is the only other thing I can think of why Austin Hill would do that, but I just really don't see it as a reason or an excuse why Austin Hill would do that. Like that doesn't change anything he did and doesn't persuade me or dissuade me of what he did and make me think otherwise. So thought I want to talk about that. And then on track at Watkins Glen, he got into it with Michael McDowell. Actually, before this, I want to talk about him and Connor Zilic. On a restart, I believe Hill was starting third behind Connor Zilic on the inside row, and he ended up just punting Connor Zilic out of the way, and that allowed Hill to get to his inside lane and be able to pounce for the lead. And then later on in the race, he ended up turning Michael McDowell into the outside wall coming off of the carousel. And that sparked a humongous crash that brought out a red flag because it's just so narrow, caught up a bunch of other cars, Taylor Gray, William Sawalich. We ended up seeing Josh Bilicki go up in the air because Ryan Ellis in the 71 car ended up careening straight into the back of Josh Bilicki and actually brought or caved in the windshield of Ryan Ellis's car and sent Josh Bilicki up in the air. It was a massive crash. And at this point now, it's just tiring to see what Austin Hill is doing every single week now. He just runs like a dummy every single week. He doesn't care. He doesn't take accountability for his actions. We've seen it in the past before. He is willing to lose his cool, and he does lose his cool. And what he does with that is he ends up running into his teammates. He makes brash, stupid moves, like spinning Cole Custer out last year at Charlotte, door slamming his teammate Sheldon Creed at Martinsville, while both of them are fighting for a playoff spot and are both in position to make the Final Four, and they both end up crashing, and they both end up missing the Final Four. That we've seen it before out of Austin Hill, and at this point, it's just very tiring to see. Like, there's a reason why you are not getting calls at 31 years old who has sponsor support to go to the Cup Series. There's a reason why you're not getting those kind of calls from Cup Series teams. That's why Richard Childress Racing and Richard Childress only has you running part-time in the Cup Series on like select starts. There's a reason why, and that's because of your conduct in the Xfinity Series. It's it's tiring at this point, and it's honestly like just no worth at all to continue talking about Austin Hill because we know what he's going to do. And at this point, he is just an Xfinity Series lifer, like Justin Allgaier, who makes select starts in the Cup Series every now and then, but he has no sense of urgency to move up to the Cup Series and just sits in Xfinity. I also point to guys like Ty Majeski, last year's Truck Series champion, Ben Rhodes, Grant Enfinger. All these guys are drivers that have stayed in the lower ranks and haven't really decided to move up into the higher ranks of NASCAR. I mean, we saw Ty Majeski um, run full time in the Xfinity Series for Roush back in the day, but after they folded, he went back down to trucks with um, ThorSport and other Ford teams. So we've seen that before. So Austin Hill is becoming an Xfinity Series lifer, and I think he could have easily moved up to the Cup Series by now. He has enough sponsorship, I believe, to make a jump up to the full-time ranks of the NASCAR Cup Series. But because of the conduct he's had on track and he's displayed, that's the reason why he is not getting those calls by guys like Spire Motorsports or Richard Childress. And Richard Childress has no urgency to move him up in like unless it's a fill-in role. He can put Jesse Love in the Cup Series. That's why he's got Jesse Love getting offers to um, go full time in the Cup Series next year. So thought I'd talk about that there. Let's talk about iRacing and their first look at the new game. We got a teeny bit of gameplay, mostly from a video that NASCAR did, and a bunch of drivers were really talking about it, and they were kind of lauding it, saying how good it was and how uh, good the driving style was and how good it looked. And to be fair, I looked at the video myself, and from what I saw, the game looked really good. It looked like it played pretty smooth. The car models looked pretty really good. It looked like iRacing, and I myself don't play iRacing. I don't have a sim racing setup, so I wouldn't know what it's like. But visually, it looks like iRacing. Now, the one gripe I do have is the night mode feature I saw with Ty Majeski in the scene. The night mode looked really really bad. It looked really, really bad. It kinda looked like a maybe like a NASCAR Rivals or NASCAR Heat 5 night race, in my opinion, but the game looked really, really good. All the car models and tracks looked really good. I also saw an in-car camera picture of racing around Bristol, and the wheels are all the way cranked to the left, which was a big yikes in my opinion, because no way you're racing around Bristol and the wheel is cranked all the way to the left. So, again, iRacing and NASCAR 25 are still in like its development stages, and it's kind of still being built, and there's still a lot of kinks they got to work out. But from what we've seen so far, I think the game looks really, really good. Um, and there's some other gripes I have with the game and iRacing itself, but like all these things are minute details. And the year, this year, I should say that the goal of iRacing is to have a solid foundation for everything that is to come, like good driving, good feel, good handling, really good AI, that kind of stuff, good racing. And next year they'll start to worry about the big details and like silly season, driver swaps, sponsorship stuff, all that. So they're gonna worry about that next year pretty much. And all the other gripes I do have is like Connor Zilic being on the original NASCAR Cup Series roster ended up being taken off of that because of Red Bull sponsorship conflicts, having no Monster Energy decals on there. So Ty Gibbs will not be racing a Monster Energy car. He'll probably be racing a Saya trucking company or a possible Interstate Batteries car, something like that. Because you won't see Ty Gibbs racing a Monster Energy car because of that sponsorship issues, which is very interesting because in NASCAR 21 Ignition, Kurt Busch was in that game with his number one Chip Ganassi car, and Monster Energy was displayed on that car. However, in the NASCAR 2022 DLC that came out, Kurt Busch was in a Jordan car that had no Monster Energy branding on it. Same for NASCAR Rivals. Kurt Busch was not did not have any Monster Energy logos on there, so Ty Gibbs didn't either. So that was interesting for sure that Monster Energy kind of left the sport. And Monster Energy is a big blue chip sponsor of NASCAR, which is very interesting. So I'm a little bit interested to see and know why Monster Energy continues to be out of the sport like that, not be in its games. But I guess that's just the way it is. So that's all that there. Looking at some of the other stuff, Andres Perez, current prospect for Spire Motorsports and the former driver of the Spire Motorsports number 77 truck, was actually released after this weekend at Watkins Glen, and he'll be driving for Nice Motorsports in the number 45 truck going forward. Excuse me, not the number 45 truck. He'll be driving the number 44 truck full time for the rest of the season. Um, Andres Perez, he's been fine this season. He has been completely wowing. He won back-to-back ARCA Menard Series titles. I think we were all expecting a little bit more from Andres Perez, and we haven't quite gotten that this year. But overall, I do think that Spire Motorsports did take a little bit of a step back after they purchased Rev Racing's Truck Series fleet. So I do think that had a bit of a impact on it. And Andres Perez will be continuing to race for Chevy. He'll be heading over to Nice Motorsports, yet another Truck Series driver that has been released mid-season. So I do wonder what future Andres Perez has. I do think that he'll probably stick in the Chevrolet system. He's been worked with Rev Racing, which is a top Chevrolet development team. So I do expect that he'll probably stay with Chevy. No, no wonder what, or we have no idea what he's going to possibly do as he continues to ascend through the ranks, because I think that he will move through the ranks of NASCAR very, very quickly. He's got good sponsor support. I think he has a lot of talent. I think that Spire wasn't really the best shot for him, best position, I should say. Going to Nice Motorsports, though, I think that we'll see a bit more improvement out of him, and he'll probably be a little bit more consistent, possibly pad his stats a little bit more. He'll probably stay in trucks for next season. Maybe he'll jump up to Xfinity Series if a ride opens up, but I really think that he'll probably just stick in Truck Series next year, whether it be with Nice or maybe he goes over to another Chevrolet team, maybe switches manufacturers. I don't know, but Spire chose to release him, and Corey LaJoie will be filling his seat in the number 77 truck for the remaining 8 races of the year. NASCAR and Spire have worked that the owner's points from the '07 truck will be added on to the number 77 truck. Not added on, excuse me, will be transferred to the number 77 truck due to all the wins and points they've accumulated over the course of this season. So Corey LaJoie will be piloting the rest of the year. Corey LaJoie has also been named the RFK reserve driver as well, which is very interesting. But it's not really surprising to me because Corey LaJoie has worked with Rick Ware Racing to have all of his Cup Series starts. So I'm not surprised that Corey LaJoie is the reserve driver for RFK as well. So Andres Perez was released. Corey LaJoie is now in that number 77 truck, and Andres Perez will be heading over to Nice in the 44 truck for the rest of the season. So that's all of that. Next up, I want to talk about some NASCAR prospects. Now, last week, uh, Bob Pockrass released an article on Fox about his top prospects in NASCAR. So I'm going to list all of mine. I'm not going to really show you his. So I'm going to just list mine real quick. I have 10 of my top prospects right now, real quick. So, number one is Connor Zilic. He's only 19 years old. Um, the injury this year will, I don't know if it'll play a factor into this because I made this list before his injury at Watkins Glen, but he's first in the Xfinity Series standings despite missing a race after Talladega after injuring his back. He's got 5 wins, and he is most likely to be moved up to Cup Series for the Trackhouse Racing number 99 next year. So, Connor Zilic, he's only 19. He's going to turn 20 in the middle of next year's season. I think that there's a lot of ceiling with him. He's been very, very good on ovals in the Xfinity Series, been very good on the road courses as expected. He's been very solid. He's easily the number one prospect. Corey Heim is at number two. He's at 23 years old. He's got 5 wins in the Truck Series, 10 top fives in just 16 starts. He already clinched the regular season championship at IRP, the last race before Watkins Glen. He's a 2311 Racing development driver. He doesn't have plans for 2026, and that's the reason why I and some others have bumped him down. Is just because of what's going to happen with his future. Is he going to move up to the Xfinity Series? We already know that possibly Caden Honeycutt may be heading over to that team. Are they going to expand to 5 trucks? Are they going to potentially push out Tanner Gray? Is Tanner Gray going to move up to Xfinity? Is Corey Heim going to move up? Is Tony Breidinger going to move up? There's a lot of questions surrounding Corey Heim's future because most likely next year, he's going to have to wait for Riley Herbst to be taken out of that seat until 2027. So Corey Heim's still going to have to wait, but he'll be well experienced. He's going to be 24 by that time. So Corey Heim's going to have a lot of experience, but I think he's got a really high ceiling in the Cup Series as well. So, and he's got a lot of good sponsor support as well in Truck Series as well. Excuse me. Number three, Brent Cruz. He's only 17 years old. He's only 2 years older than me at this point, I would say. He's got 2 wins and a second place finish in 5 ARCA starts, and he's also done some part time in Truck Series. Uh, he hasn't been great in trucks, but the reason why I have him up here so high is he's got good sponsor support. He just launched his own Truck Series team, which is crazy. And he's likely to be in a Joe Gibbs Racing car in Xfinity Series next year when he does turn 18. So, Brent Cruz, he's got a lot of support behind him at Toyota. So, I think he's got really good opportunities to continue to move up and eventually be in a Cup Series ride. So, no brainer here with Brent Cruz moving up to number three. At number four, I got Jesse Love. He's 20 years old, fourth in the Xfinity Series standings. He's got 1 win, 15 top 10 finishes. That is unbelievable. And he's in the market for a possible Cup Series ride, whether that be with RCR, whether that be with Legacy Motor Club. He is in the market for a possible Cup Series ride next season. He's been very consistent, and aside from that DQ at Rockingham earlier this year, he's been very good this year. I do think that Jesse Love maybe does need one more season in Xfinity, but then again, Richard Childress Racing has taken a little bit of a dip in recent seasons in Xfinity Series production. So maybe Jesse Love is ready. Maybe just needs to get that next gen car experience, and he already has a little bit of experience after doing some starts this year. So maybe the time is right for Jesse Love to be in the Cup Series. Number five is Christian Eckes, 24 years old, 15th in the Xfinity Series standings, and he's on a struggling calling team. And I'm not going to hold that against him. A rough rookie year, new car for him. He's on a struggling calling team. Calling released Josh Williams. They're bringing in Cup Series guys to evaluate how their Xfinity Series team is. They might be selling off one of their cars to Spire next year. So a lot of things moving on behind the scenes. But I still think Christian Eckes is one of the better NASCAR prospects, and I think that he can eventually move into a full-time Cup Series ride, whether that be next year or 2 years. I'm leaning towards 2 years possibly. So Christian Eckes is definitely one of those guys that I'm watching out for as a top 5 NASCAR prospect. Next guy is Chandler Smith at number 6, age 23, He's second in the Truck Series standings right now. He's got 2 wins, 4 top fives, and the only reason I have him down so far because I think he is one of the more top end talents. He probably has the most raw talent. I could really see him being at number 4, maybe replacing Brent Cruz and maybe moving Jesse Love up to number 3. Like, maybe that's where I see Chandler Smith on talent-wise, but I'm taking all of the factors in consideration. He had to move down to the Truck Series because of a lack of sponsorship, so I think that could have an effect on it, but maybe he can strike a full-time Cup Series ride down the line. He's still pretty young, 23. I'm not saying that's old. It's a little bit older to what we're seeing now with, some other prospects right now, so maybe we could see, possibly Chandler Smith, be in a Cup Series ride next year. I think he's definitely deserving of an Xfinity Series ride, bare minimum. I also could see him moving up to calling again because he was with calling last year, so maybe possibly, but just due to the limited opportunities that Chandler Smith does have, I am gonna put him at 6 for right now. Moving on to number 7, Sam Mayer, hometown kid for me, from nearby Wisconsin, nearby Franklin, Wisconsin. Shout out to Sam Mayer. Just got his first win a couple weeks ago at Iowa. He's 22 years old, third in the Xfinity Series standings, and he's got 10 top fives, which is outstanding for that Haas factory team in their first year without Tony Stewart behind the scenes as well. Sam Mayer has been really good for these past couple years. He was in the market for a Cup Series ride. He said he wanted to go Cup Series racing last year, but called out a bunch of Cup Series teams for not having their eyes on him. And I think with Ford now, he's going to have a lot more opportunities to go for a Cup Series ride, especially with some other guys maybe retiring or moving down to lower ranks as well. So Sam Mayer at number 7 feels good. Doesn't have a lot of sponsor support. I will say that he doesn't have quite as much sponsor support as maybe someone like a Jesse Love or Brent Cruz has. So I'll put Sam Mayer at number 7. At number 8, I got Corey Day, current Hendrick Motorsports development driver, 19 years old, 2 top fives and 7 Truck Series starts. It's been a little bit rough on the adjustment from dirt to asphalt, but that's kind of the thing that goes along with transitioning from dirt to asphalt. Takes a little bit of time, but we've seen how guys like Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, all those guys have kind of turned out. Um, I have that same kind of confidence in Corey Day. As long as he gets more experience, I think that he'll end up being pretty solid in NASCAR, in the Truck Series, Xfinity Series, whether that be. Number 9, Lane Riggs, one of the best prospects in my opinion. Super underrated. 23 years old, first full time season last year, second full time season last year. He's third in the Truck Series standings right now. 2 wins, 7 top fives. Uh, he's most likely looking at another year in the Truck Series, but really good with Front Row Motorsports. I wouldn't be surprised if he moves from trucks straight up to Cup Series. We've seen that with several other guys, so I wouldn't be surprised if Lane Riggs moves up in that similar career trajectory. And at number 10, I got Carson Kvapil, a little bit older, age 23 as well. Sixth in the Xfinity Series standings, 9 top tens as a rookie with no prior full-time NASCAR experience or ARCA experience, by the way. He moved straight from late models to NASCAR, which is unbelievable. So Carson Guapel has been driving a really good season this year. He may be in the possible opportunity to move over to a possible new Xfinity Series team, maybe to Ford. So maybe you never know. But Carson Guapel has been very impressive this season. So I want to mention him at number 10. Some other top prospects I want to highlight. Raja Caruth for Siren Motorsports. He's got a win this year, age 23. He's done a lot with little experience and little time. And I should say such a short amount of time is very impressive for Raja Caruth. And then Caden Honeycutt, age 22, doesn't have a win, but he's a playoff contender. Uh, he just did get dropped from Nice and now is heading to Toyota, which I think could be a potential really good move because I think Toyota probably does have the best driver development system. So Caden Honeycutt is another guy I want to mention. Taylor Gray as well. He's kind of struggled this year, which I wasn't really expecting, but he only has one full time season of Truck Series under his belt. But he's got 6 top fives, 11 top tens. So can't really get mad at it. I think that next year he'll definitely take a step up. Brendan Queen, age 27, a little bit older than the traditional NASCAR prospect, but has 5 wins, 10 top fives, and in 12 starts and ARCA. He's been very good. He could definitely be in the market for a possible Truck Series ride next year with Chevrolet. So I'm very excited to see what Brendan Queen has. Sammy Smith, 21 years old, former ARCA back-to-back champion. He's got great sponsor support, and I think that Sammy Smith is pretty good. I will say that he is one of the better Chevrolet prospects. Is he quite on the level of a Carson Kvapil or a Corey Day? No, I don't think he's quite there, but I think Sammy Smith can definitely be a Cup Series driver full time. Moving on, Sheldon Creed. He's 27 years old. He's a former Truck Series champion. He's got a lot of experience. That's what I'm kind of leaning on with Sheldon Creed. And then Daniel Dye. He's 22 years old. He struggled with calling, but all calling has really struggled. So kind of hard to put it against Daniel Dye. Some other guys to watch that are kind of young and don't have as much experience and exposure. William Sawalich, full-time driver for Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series. Isabella Robusto, full-time ARCA driver in the Toyota system. Jade Avedijian, just making her first couple ARCA starts later this year. She's only 18. She's got a long way to go. Andres Perez, we just talked about him. He's 20 years old. Just moved to Toyota, or excuse me, just moved to Nice. I think he's got a potential in the Cup Series eventually. And Gio Ruggiero, really good road racer. I think Gio Ruggiero could potentially be a really, really good full-time driver down the road. He's got a lot of potential. All these guys got really good potential. Maybe some of the older guys don't quite have as much of a ceiling as some of these other guys, some of these younger guys, but I still think these guys are really, really good. They're all younger and they're up and coming, so I think it'll be very interesting to see what they can do going forward. Now, the last thing I want to touch on here today is the antitrust case between NASCAR and the teams 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports. So recently, a report came out from Bob Pockrass that a judge had ruled on NASCAR's request for a show cause order, which essentially has the teams to come to the court for a hearing to present their argument on why the court shouldn't do this to them and explain their kind of reasonings. So that was denied, and that was actually motioned on August 7th. On August 11th, on Monday, that was denied. So there's that. So the teams don't have to worry about that. And the court said that NASCAR was really just trying to do that to uh, sway the public opinion and swayed the judge and the court in a different way to view the case differently and to potentially hide some of the things that they are have going on behind the scenes. So that's all that. I just want to touch on that real quick. The trial is still set for December 1st. No other really news besides that on the lawsuit. I talked about how hopefully I don't inspire 2311 Racing to do this, but maybe they'll use the Kurt Busch incident to potentially point out the flaws of NASCAR and maybe some of the flawed business practice they have and how they are potentially putting their drivers in danger. So, thought I might talk about that real quick and get you up to date on the latest happenings in the lawsuit. And that's all I got for you guys today. Tomorrow, barring some other news, I'll be talking about why Road America and the Milwaukee Mile should be on the future NASCAR Cup Series schedules or future NASCAR schedules. I should somewhat roll a little bit because I don't know how much merit a NASCAR Cup Series race at the Milwaukee Mile will have. If I hear the words the Milwaukee Mile and NASCAR Cup Series associated with in the same sentence, I might freak out. I'm not I'm not gonna lie, I might freak out if I hear that. That'd be crazy, but that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for more episodes because I still got a lot of stuff to talk about coming up. There's gonna be more news coming up. A lot more silly stuff can happen in NASCAR silly season. We got Richmond coming up this weekend, the Cookout 400 at Richmond Raceway. So I'm going to be covering that later this weekend. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next episode. This has been Andrew Volkman with Talking NASCAR, and I'll see you in the next episode. See you later.